The final review of the Citadel LevTac92 right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Alright folks, so here we go. We're going to take a final look at the Citadel LevTac92. So if you missed it, go back and check out the previous video where I introduce it. So just checking the firearm for clear, you can see the green of the follower, decock the hammer, and we're good to go. So I've had a lot of requests to do this final review, and it's about time we do it. I certainly didn't want to give you a review straight off the bat when I hadn't put enough rounds down it. That's just not a fair representation of the firearm. So basically my one here is a 44 Magnum. Obviously it still is capable of shooting 44 Special. Now you can also get these in 357 mag that shoots 38 Special, and you can get them in 454 Casull, which shoots 45 Colt. If you're not sure what's entirely going on with this video, it may pay to check out my original video, which was the initial overview and setup. So I haven't really changed the setup in any way. I've done a few mods and bits and pieces, but the components I showed fitting originally were the same. So I've smoothed out the sear on the trigger. I didn't really want to lighten it. It was a good pull weight at about 3.5 pounds to start with. All I wanted to do was smooth it out. I haven't had to touch the action. It's been perfectly slick out of the box. I have no need to change that up. Now what I have done is flared out the loading port and gate. It was definitely like a razor blade, and it was finger splitting material. So there's a video on that too. I just took to it with a file, rounded it out. So yeah, check out the video for the trigger and the loading gate. Now I've also done the recoil pad. The original one was perfectly serviceable, but it was very hard. And the issue that was in the prone position. So I used this Limb Saver grinder fit kit, which I've done before. Works out really nicely, and it makes a huge difference to the recoil. Like I said, particularly in the prone, I don't really care about standing up or anything. It never gave me any issues, but particularly while I was doing my load development in the prone, it was a bit of a nightmare. So I also did a separate video on wrapping the lever. I wasn't a big fan of the big loop initially to begin with, but now with the paracord wrap, I'm more happy with it. So the other thing I've done as well is fill out that polymer stock. They tend to rattle, and so that fixes that. So there's just the expanding foam. I didn't do a video on that because it's pretty basic. But a viewer did point out to me in the comments that he'd fitted a Boyd stock to his. So they're the guys who do the really cool laminate stocks. He'd chosen just to fit the black painted version, but they do all the really cool like effects with the grain on laminate stocks, and that definitely helps with the weight as well. He said, you know, these are very forward heavy with the polymer stock, so having a wooden stock in the back just balances the rifle out a little bit. Now the other thing that somebody commented on was losing the front sling stud. Now I haven't managed to break mine. I'm not a huge fan of these traditional studs on sort of more tactical firearms. They're fine on a hunting rifle, but I haven't managed to pull mine out, and I did deliberately try after that user commented. So that was awesome. The iron sights out of the box are fantastic. With 44 mag, they were pretty much spot on straight out of the box. I did quickly bore sight them just to confirm and then put them on target. But I did shoot it almost entirely with the Vector Maverick, which I'll do another video of a little bit later on. But I did see one user comment that with 357 Magnum the sights were too high, and then funnily enough after that comment several more turned up as well. So that might be something to consider. Now you could look at finding a higher front sight because it was shooting high, but a lot of difficulty involved with that. Now the muzzle brake, that was a whole nother battle. When I initially bought this, it was sold to me as being half by 28, and that's correct. It is by 28, but it's not half inch. It actually is 37/64, and a lot of people got confused by this. Now the 38-357 version is half by 28, but both this 44 mag and the 454 Cowgirl version take 37/64 by 28 threads. So I had to go and buy a tap and a drill in order to get this sorted. And to be honest, that was slightly aggravating, but I overcame that, so it wasn't really an issue. But that's just something to note if you're looking at either the 44 Magnum version or the 454 Cowgirl version. Muzzle devices and suppressors could be a little bit harder to obtain. So obviously, like I said in the first place, this was actually a 223 muzzle brake. So while I was there, I happened to bore out the diameter to obviously accommodate the 44 mag. This muzzle brake originally had a lot of material on it, so boring it out wasn't really an issue. Now I've also had to make a minor modification. So you can see the large diameter of the shank on the muzzle brake. And so what I've had to do is actually file just a little notch out of the magazine cap. I wanted to make sure that I could still remove the magazine cap with the muzzle brake installed. Now I always fit my muzzle brakes and then Loctite them in place, so I slowly shave the shoulder back on the muzzle brake until it times correctly and then Loctite it in place. So I wanted that cap removable just in case I needed to dump rounds out of the magazine or service anything in the magazine. Now I want to briefly touch on the Vector Maverick. It's been fantastic. I'm in love with it. In fact, I've actually got 2 more on order at the moment. 11 levels of brightness, rubber encasing on this particular one, comes with the high rise and the low rise mount, comes with the kill flash, comes with bikini covers as well. So really happy with that. I'll do a whole separate video on the review of that one coming shortly, but it's held 0 and I'm over the moon with it. Now I want to just cover some accuracy as well. So I did a really quick and crude load development. There was nothing particularly fantastic about the load development I did. All I did, I like to use the optimum barrel time theory. I say theory because we don't live in a perfect world and nothing ever quite lines up, but I've always had great success with that. I do actually have a whole nother video on that if you want to know what I'm on about. But that gave me 5 different loads to try with the 240 grain Hornady XTPs. So an XTP is a jacketed hollow point, 240 grain being obviously the common for 44 Magnum. So I did 4 different loads. So I want to show you a couple here with the help of Ballistic X. These were at 50 meters from the prone position. Now obviously it's a red dot as well, so that's something to bear in mind. Should I had magnification on there, I would have hoped for these groups to be a little bit smaller, but all the loads that I came up with shot particularly well, and what I've ended up loading as my final load was the yellow load. So had I had the choice, the only thing I would change is I would have bought this rifle in 357 Magnum. Now at the time I didn't have another 357. Now I have picked another one up, so it would have been nice to have 2 rifles in the same caliber. Hopefully 1 set of loads, 1 set of dies, all that. stuff, but it just so happens that when I pre-ordered this one, I chose 44 Magnum because I did intend on potentially using this to, shoot a deer or a pig or something like that at short range. And I went through the ballistic characteristics and I decided that 44 Magnum would be better. Not that 357 wouldn't do the job, bigger is better, right? So you always want more power, and what has more power than a 44 Magnum? So minor things too to note here as well is the angle of the handguard. It's not a true 45-degree handguard. So when it came to fitting the M-LOK mount for the Olight Odin Mini, it gave me a little bit of grief. Now, a couple of longer screws and I was away laughing anyway, but it's just something to note. It's not a true 45-degree handguard. So just to close out, I am really happy with this rifle. Its accuracy is good, its value for money is well and truly up there, it's easily upgradable. The platform is something that's well known, it's out there, so there's plenty of optional extras, there's plenty of upgrades and aftermarket parts if you want to go down that route, or you can just leave it as it was straight out of the box and there's nothing wrong with it. So it is a modern day take on, what was a cowboy rifle, effectively. But that's fine. And it's not going to fit everyone's tastes, that's definitely for sure. But it's got all the features and it ticks all the boxes. It's got that ghost ring rear sight. It's threaded, so you can put that brake on it. You can put a flash hider, you can put a suppressor on the end of it. The options are basically endless with a platform like this. So, you're not exactly going to turn up to a cowboy action shoot with this. You might get laughed out of the place, which, that's fair enough. But for a plinking rifle and, to short range take down like a deer or a pig or something like that, this is an absolutely fantastic rifle. It's a good weight, it's a handy rifle, being, a just over 16-inch barrel. I have no complaints, and I would 100% buy one of these again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I release new videos every Friday, so hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on anything. See you in the next one.